Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Scrap Mechanic with Lyte. And today, we're going to build ourselves a timer. Now, it's not the best timer, but that's not how science works. You don't jump right to the best thing. You make progress, incremental, iterative progress. And I don't know how to make the best timer. I don't know how to make a tick resolution timer just yet. We might find out together. We might discover that it can't be done. We might discover it's way easier than the timer I'm going to make this time. We'll see. But for now, there are a couple of components that go into our timer. This one you might recognize. This is my 3-tick pulse generator from last time. Now it could be any tick pulse, because right now it's set at 7. But if we set it to 0, you have 2-tick delay from the timer itself, an extra tick from this gate, and voila, you get a 3-tick pulse. And just to test, we push the button, shabam! And now, if we're all fancy about it, I can press a button and pause it. Fancy. So you can see that it is in fact 3 pulses. We don't have to slow down the footage, we just pause it. Brilliant. I don't even have to do it in post. And again, you hit this, and it turns it off, and you're good to go. If you want a longer pulse, you just kick this to, let's put it back to the 7 it was at. Now that 7 plus 3 is 10, so we should get a 10-tick pulse when we hold this button. Shabam! And now once again, we take a look. Hey look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ticks worth of pulse. It's a lovely thing. Come on, come back, game. Come back to me. Okay. So, there we go. We turn that off. But the trouble with this is if you don't hold it down for the whole 10 ticks, shabam, it doesn't give you 10 ticks of pulse. We might need to have exactly the amount of pulse we want, so we're going to fix that a little ways down the line. But next up is not that part. This will create a train of 3-tick pulses. As long as you hold down the button, you'll get 3 on, 3 off, 3 on, 3 off. How that ends up working is we send the button signal into both of these gates. So both AND gates get the signal from the button. Then the first AND gate goes to the second, and then the second goes back to the first through a NOT gate. This one happens to be a NAND, but it's only got one input, so it doesn't matter what kind of NOT you use. If you try to expand it out, then it'll matter, but for this, you just send the button into both, this AND into the NOT, and back around. So whenever we hold the button, it creates a train of 3 on, 3 off. And again, we can just pause the system and go, phook, and you see 3 on, 3 off in a circle. Now, this doesn't have a whole lot of immediate apparent usage, but having something that creates a train of ticks like that is kind of handy. It could be used for some sort of clock, and at least it's predictable. You know exactly how long it's going to be, on and off. Or do you? What happens if I only hold it for 2 ticks? Or if I happen to hold it for 7 ticks? Well, you would get the 3 on, and then 3 off, and then 1 on. Ooh, that's no good. We don't want a 3 and then a 1. That could drive things insane. So this on its own still isn't great. But we're not working in isolation. We're not just using this one thing. We can combine all of the various things that are going on with one more thing to get exactly what we need. So this right here is a 3-tick pulse generator. So we just push the button and it creates a 3-tick pulse. Pause it just so you can see. There you go, 3 ticks worth of pulse. Now it doesn't matter how long you hold it. If we tap it super quick, and somehow manage to do a 2-tick pulse, it's still going to give you 3. If we hold it down for the rest of eternity, it's still just going to give you those 3 ticks worth of pulse. Et voila. So how does that work? Well, I'll get as close as I can to this little bit of spider web here. This goes to both of these. This comes up here. This goes across to those two. And this one goes into both of those. And this guy comes in here. So what does that really do for us? Well, this right here is a 1-tick pulse generator. Shabbat, it creates a pulse. It's pretty much exactly this thing over here. Except instead of having this 2-tick thing, you've only got, well, nothing. Because you go directly into here and into there. So you subtract 2 from 3 and you get 1. So this right here is a 1-tick pulse generator. It sends that 1-tick pulse down here and over here into our XNOR here, which already has something going into it, so it's off. So we get 1 tick here and 1 tick here. Well, the 1 tick into a knot toggles it, which toggles the one next to it, which toggles into here. So this takes our 1 tick of pulse and extends it to 3. So we have something that limits the pulse, sending into something that extends the pulse. So this right here, no matter how long you press it, truncates it down to 1 tick, and then expands it back out to 3. I'm not sure if there's a more elegant way to do it, but it certainly gets the job done. It's not a whole lot of extra blocks. And it does what we need. This down here I have just to demonstrate the logical properties of a 3-input XNOR. So let's turn all of these off, and it's on, because it's a NOT gate. NOT gate, when you give it nothing, it gives you true. Everything off means on. If you turn on 1, it turns itself off. It doesn't matter which one. These gates really don't care about which one is which. So no matter which one is on, it's off. However, if there are 2 on, it's on. So it basically knows whether or not the number of inputs is even or odd. And then you go back to 3 and it turns itself off again. Even or odd. Not sure if you're going to need multiple inputs. Hey, let's add a 4th one and a 5th one just to make sure our hypothesis is in fact the case. So we've got 3 is off, a 4th is on, a 5th is off. Hey, look. Parity. And there you go. So we've got something that will create a pulse no longer than what we want. We have a thing that will turn that pulse into 3 on, 3 off, 3 on, 3 off, and then something that will take anything and turn it into a 3-tick pulse. Well, what happens when we combine all 3 of those? So say we put in a 7-tick pulse over here. We run this through this, and we would get 3 on, 3 off, 1 on. We run it through here. That first set of 3 comes in, goes through the 3-tick pulse generator, gets truncated to 1, becomes 3 again. Beautiful. Then you get 3 off, doesn't do anything with it, and then you get 1 on, comes in here, gets turned into 3. So you send it those 7, it turns into 3, 3 on, 3 off, 3 on. So at least we've turned our 3-tick pulse train into a reliably 3-tick pulse train. Okay, so all of that works together just fine. What's this big old concoction? Well, you recognize this down here. This with the AND, the 3 knots, and an XNOR. Well, this one isn't strictly just a knot. This one is a NOR. Is it? I thought it was, but it's not. It's just a knot. All of these are just knots. They all only have 1 input. So it doesn't matter what kind of knot you use. So we know this. This is our 3-tick pulse generator from over here. 3-tick pulse. Oh, I probably should have mentioned, my coloring conventions. I use the blue for the input, the yellow for the output. Green, yellow and blue makes green, is both. It's probably not great to use something as both input and output, but sometimes you want to do it. So blue is input, yellow is output. So we input this button into both inputs, and then this output comes into our new contraption. So we've got an XOR, and we got two NOTs. Are they NOTs? One into this one into that one. Well, there's another one into that one. So that's why we're using the NORs, because we do actually have two inputs into them. We'll get into these secondary inputs in a second. So what does this do? Well, when we press this yellow button, it toggles. So this yellow is a positive output. This purple is a negative output. If the purple is on, that means 0. Yellow on means 1. And it toggles back and forth, back and forth. Well, the red button turns it off. No matter how many times I press it, it's off. And the green one turns it on. Just such that you have all of the functionality with these three blocks. They toggle, they go off, and they go on. Now, the reason we have this 3-tick pulse generator is this flip-flop. Oh, it does not like any length of pulse other than 3. Because when it comes in here, you need it to be able to get back to here. If it doesn't come all the way back, it gets into some spastic convulsions, and it is no longer a flip-flop. It is not a toggle. It is horrifying. So you need to give this thing a 3-tick pulse, which will make sense why we built this 3-tick pulse train over here. We want to continually give this thing more and more 3-tick pulses such that it does what it's supposed to and it doesn't freak out. Don't want it to freak out. So what happens when we take our 3-tick pulse train and plug it into our flip-flop here? Well, it'll flip and then it'll flop and then it'll flip and it'll flop and it'll flip and it'll flop. How often will it flip and flop? Well, you get 6 ticks before the next flop. So 3 on, 3 off, and then flip again. So there are 6 ticks between each flop. Okay. So what does that get us? Well, that gets us a clock. Well, a timer, really. Not this type of timer. This is a delay line. This is not a timer. I want something that is able to time how long it takes to get from point A to point B. And that's what this here does. Right here, we've got our input. This is standing in for our thing going somewhere. We can set exactly how many ticks of timing we want. Here is our pulse train. We convert it into a series of 3-tick pulses. This is our pulse train normalizer. Make sure every 3-tick thing is a 3-tick thing. No 2 or 1 ticks getting through here. This was just for debugging purposes, just to make sure this part did what it was supposed to. And over here, we've got a series of flip-flops. They flip and flop all the way down the line, and they're connected by ANDs. And over here, we just have a little bridge, I guess, from the input bridged into this fancy concoction here. Now you see there's a lot of spiderwebbing going on. That's why I've got things at different heights and different orientations such that as I move through, your eye can at least try to follow what's going on. And I will explain it. So this bridge is basically saying, hey look, we've got a pulse, and sends it to anything in here that needs to know. So what in here needs to know? So these flip-flops are arranged sequentially for a reason. Granted, they're backwards. I'm sorry, people who think binary only in one direction. They are a little bit backwards for you. I could add something that'll make it the other way around. Let's actually do that. Over here, let's do that. Let's make a nice little wall that will actually show it to you in the order that you want it. 1, 2, 3. We've only got 4 bits to work with. It's not the end of the world. So we'll make a nice little scoreboard here for you. Let's even paint it gray. Oh, white. I don't want white. I want gray. That white is blinding. Okay. And then we'll just take these and put them in the order you're going to like. Because this is a binary readout. Because what we're going to be doing is counting up in binary. There we are. So we got 4 bits to work with. We've got a pulse train coming into our thing. This is a flip-flop. You've got your input here, you've got your positive output there, and you can see there are 3 lines coming out of that output. There's one pointing here, one pointing there, and one pointing there. So it points to each of these orange ands, because these ands tell this next flip-flop whether or not it's time to flip or flop. But there's also something else coming into each of these ands, and it's the bridge. The bridge comes into the first flip-flop, and then each of the 3 ands. Okay, so if we look at this one, it's got 3 things coming in. The bridge, the first one, and the second one. The second one comes in here, and it goes down there. Each output goes to each later and. I probably shouldn't have had that on for that. So each output into each successive and. You don't go back, because we only go forward here. So basically what it's saying is if you get an input and this one is already active, you toggle that one and then you activate the next one, because that's how binary adding works. So if we're at 0, we activate the bridge, it toggles this one. Then we get another pulse. 6 ticks later, it deactivates this one and activates that one. So we've gone from 1 to 2. Now, say we get another pulse. It toggles this one, but this one isn't ready yet because it needed the previous one to already be active. So it goes from 1 to 2, and then both are on for 3. And so on down the line. You can extend this for as many bits as you could possibly want. You just need to remember that you need the bridging input to go to every and then you need the flip-flop output to go to each and that is later than it is. Because if you have nothing but ones down the line, you toggle them all, and then this one, then the next one gets toggled on. It's a lot of the word toggle. I'm hoping you're following. So the flip-flops flop, the ands determine, is everything before it on? If so, flop what you've got. That's a great, great slogan. Flop what you got. Now, I've got this red button here. It's attached to each of these outputs because it's the reset button from over here. Turns everything off, because we're going to do this a couple of times with a couple of different length pulses and see what we get. Now, this is not a great timer. It's not 1-tick resolution. And even at the resolution it's at, there's some shenanigans that go on that make it a bit odd in how long of pulses it does in fact accept and count. So if we set this all the way down to 0, it throws a 3-tick pulse, which counts by 1. So 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and what follows 15, kids? 0. We run out of bits down this end, and so it just loops back around to 0. Now, if we kick it up to 1, so that's a 4-tick pulse, it still counts by 1. And 2 gives us a 5-tick pulse, counts by 1. 3, we're up to a 6-tick pulse now, counts by 1. Now we hit 4, we'd think, oh, it's still not quite ready for counting by 2. It's when we get to the 8 tick pulse. Ooh, 8 tick is still too short. Ah. I think I'm holding the button down too short. Yeah. That's the trouble with this input. You still need to hold it how long you want it to go. Okay. So here we're still good. At 5, we count by 2. So that means at an 8 tick pulse, we are finally counting by 2. Now this is mildly problematic. I was hoping for a 7 tick pulse, but 8's okay. So at 5, we have an 8 tick pulse. It counts by 2. So if we move this up by, let's say, 6 ticks, we should put it at 11, which should count by 3. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Now if we tick it down by just 1, it only counts by 2. So every 6 ticks, it counts by 1 more. But it doesn't start at 0, unfortunately. So at 11 on the timer, which is a 14 tick pulse, and then at 5, which is an 8 tick pulse, we have the breaks between where it counts. And then anywhere above that, you go 6 more ticks. 17 is 20. It'll count by 4. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can keep doing this all the way up. So 23, this will count by 5. I didn't let it flush the system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And so on up the line. That one felt like 5. So let's reset the system and send it up again. And there we are at 6. So I might have missed something along the line. I might not have counted it exactly right. But here we are with something that counts, and say we wanted to go at just 1 full second. Let's see how high it goes. And there we are. So for those of you that are still a little shaky on binary, every method of counting has a ones place. In decimal, you then have a tens place, a hundreds place, a thousands place. In binary, you have a ones place, a twos place, a fours place, an eights place, 16, 32, 64, down the line. So here we have a 1 plus a 2 plus a 4 is 7. So these 40 ticks divided by 6 is roughly 7. Again, you run into a little bit of math error because you extend things that aren't quite long enough. And in general, this is only for getting vague semblances of how much time it takes. If 6 ticks is enough certainty for you, this timer is great. So let's say we double it. Should take us to 14, which should be this 8, the 4, and the 2. Let's see if it gives us 14. And it does. It's not a fine-grained timer, really. It's better than counting in seconds because you get fractions of a second here, but it has a little bit of inaccuracy from this fella right here. It's got a little bit of inaccuracy at the beginning because you can't get the difference between a 6, like a 3, a 6, and 8 tick pulse. They're just more or less the same. But it's an okay timer if you've got something to do the arithmetic to get it back into a set of units you actually care about. Now, for my testing, it might not even matter what number it gives me, so long as it gives me the same number for different heights. So I might be able to find the height at which something reaches its terminal velocity, or if there is one at all. So this timer might be enough for my testing, it might not. We'll see. There's likely a way to get a better resolution timer, but for now, I think having the 6-tick resolution should be okay. Now to finish off this episode, I'm thinking we should add another bit worth of accuracy. Just such that you're certain that you know how this whole thing works. So let's extend this out. Oh, it's not the same gray. There we go. So to add another bit, we're going to add another flip-flop. What's that? Always have to get it facing the right way. Good enough. That is not good enough. Okay, so we add another flip-flop here on the end. We need a XOR here. We need a NOR and a NOR. This part goes in a loop. This part goes in there. Now the AND comes from every output before it, including the bridge. Okay, so we've taken every output into the AND, including the bridge. The AND comes into the XOR. The XOR loops around the flip-flop. And then we paint this top to show that it's an output. We paint this one to show it's the negation. And then we come on over here and add it to our display. Oops, color. And now we just grab this output and drop it into the display, and then take our reset button and send it into the output. So it should now be good to go. So how high can we count now? Well, I'd say we can get at least to 3 seconds now, if not 4, probably even more than that, because by adding a single bit, you've doubled how much you can actually record. So let's push the button, see what we get. And there we go. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. 16 plus 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21 cycles through this adder. Times the 6 ticks per cycle puts us at about 126 ticks. Yep, 120 plus 1 because of the inaccuracies of the system. So we get within 6 ticks of what we're looking at, which is okay. It's not great, but it's more than I can tell without it. Unfortunately, 6 ticks is not the resolution I can get from just recording it and slowing down the footage. Because every second is 40 ticks. Even at 30 ticks per second, I've got, you know, pretty decent resolution tick-wise in my recordings. So if we want to use this in-game thing, it'll just be for convenience, unless we can get it down to 1 tick, and then it'll be comparable to a recording setup. But that's okay. We're not here about getting everything perfect. Let's zoom out a little bit. This is about science. This is seeing how things work, putting them together, and maybe looking at this, someone will go, oh, that part is thoroughly inefficient. You're losing a lot here. If you, say, shorten the time that it's off, you'll still have 3 tick pulses, but they'll be closer together. You go from 6 to 4. Maybe that'll be great. Maybe there's a way to chain these along such that it is counting every tick, but you only extend it at the end. Might work too. So if you've got such ideas and you're not a super duper ultra expert at this, feel free to let me know. I can test them out, or I'll keep plugging away at it, or I'll decide it's good how it is and start doing some physics testing. Either way, leave a comment if you want to see anything in particular. Feel free to hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next episode of Scrap Mechanic with Lyte.